Right, let's have a proper chat. You're gagging for that first cup of coffee in the morning, aren't you? That warm, comforting brew before the utter chaos of modern British life kicks off. You stumble into the kitchen, put the kettle on, scoop that dark, fragrant ground stuff into the cafetiere or the machine, and just assume that what's landing in your mug is, well, coffee. Pure, unadulterated, heavenly coffee. But what if I told you that while you're standing there in your dressing gown, you might actually be brewing up a lovely pot of roasted corn, sweepings from a factory floor, some mould, and a chemical that's banned in paint stripper? Suddenly, that morning ritual feels a bit different, doesn't it? It's not a conspiracy theory, mate. It's just the cold, hard, oily reality of the global coffee commodity market that the big brands don't want stamped on the front of the packet in Tesco today. We are absolutely pulling the plug on this whole steaming mess. By the time we're done here, you will know exactly what 90% of shoppers in Sainsbury's or Asda are blissfully ignoring. I'm going to reveal how industry giants legally bulk up pre-ground coffee with everything from twigs to roasted barley without you ever noticing. We're going to look at actual laboratory data detailing the carcinogenic mould sitting in some of the UK's favourite supermarket staples. I'll break down precisely why some decaf is a chemical bath you really want to avoid. And yes, we're going to name names, the actual brands sitting in your cupboard right now that offer the least transparency for your hard-earned quid. But it's not all doom and gloom. Stick with me, because at the end, I'm going to give you concrete, actionable rules to make sure you never buy a dupe again, including 5 specific brands actually available in the UK that are genuinely, verifiably 100% proper coffee. And you really need to wait for the final reveal in part 2, because the household name you probably trust the most is arguably the worst offender. But look, before we start slagging off specific tins of instant, we need to understand how this game works. Think of the coffee industry like buying a used car. You can buy a certified traceable vehicle where you know every previous owner and service detail. Or you can buy a beta off some dodgy bloke on Facebook with a freshly cleaned engine bay and a suspicious rattle. The cheap pre-ground coffee on the supermarket shelf is that beta, because roasted coffee is brown, slightly oily, and ground into a uniform powder. It is a masterclass in deception. Once it's ground up, the human eye cannot tell the difference between high-grade Arabica beans and lower-grade Robusta beans, let alone other stuff. It's like buying beef mince. Is it prime steak, or is it mostly gristle and pink slime? The industry's dirtiest open secret is adulteration. To keep that price down to £3, £50 for a massive tin, companies often bulk out the product with cheaper fillers that are roasted and ground up alongside the actual beans. We're talking roasted corn, barley, soybeans, coffee husks, and literally sticks and twigs. Once they are all roasted dark and pulverized, they dissolve or brew up looking like coffee. But they aren't coffee. You're paying for floor sweepings at premium bean prices. It's a classic case of profit over purity, and you're the one drinking the agricultural byproducts, and then there's the biological stuff. Coffee is an agricultural crop, grown in warm, humid climates, often in regions without sophisticated drying technology. If it's stored poorly or transported lazily, it develops mould. Specifically, fungi like Aspergillus and Penicillium. These aren't just gross, they produce mycotoxins, specifically ochratoxin A. This stuff is categorized as a probable human carcinogen and is linked to kidney damage. A shocking study found that more than 90% of green coffee beans tested were contaminated with mould. While roasting kills the fungus itself, it does not necessarily destroy the toxins that are already in the beans. This is what's landing in the economy coffee section. Every single fact I'm dropping here is designed to make you question that big red canister in your kitchen. Because the truth is, the current state of the mass market coffee supply is shocking, but it's time you knew. Right, let's get stuck into the actual culprits lurking on our British supermarket shelves. We're marching through these brands from the budget basements up to the household names that you probably buy every single week, thinking you're treating yourself. Let's start with Aldi's Alcafe and Lidl's Bellarom ground options. Now, we all love a middle Azel raid, and both Aldi and Lidl have built an absolute empire in the UK on the promise that their store brands are identical to the big names, just half the price. But when it comes to their cheapest coffee, it's a race to the bottom. They buy commodity-grade beans in massive, pooled global batches, and the packaging tells you absolutely nothing about the specific farms or origin. Here's the real kicker. Neither brand publishes third-party testing data for mycotoxins or pesticide residues. The independent consumer group Which has repeatedly highlighted how supermarket-owned brands skate by on minimal disclosure. When you're paying barely £2 for a bag, you're getting the lower-grade, rejected, Robusta beans that have been dried and shoved into humid shipping containers, which is prime real estate for Aspergillus mould. One consumer review on a popular UK shopping forum summed it up beautifully, saying it tasted less like an artisan roast and more like an old burnt boot that had been left in a damp garage. Your verdict, Zinger? It's not a bargain if your morning pick-me-up is just a cheap mask for agricultural leftovers. Moving up the high street, we have to talk about Tesco Stockwell and Asda Just Essentials. These are the absolute cheapest lines on the shelves, designed to battle the discounters. To make a profit on a jar of instant coffee that costs less than £1, contract roasters have to cut every corner imaginable. The commodity supply chain blends everything together into a massive anonymous stream, meaning a jar you buy in a London Tesco in May could contain entirely different, cheaper, and more defect-heavy beans than a jar bought in a Manchester Tesco in September. A 2024 study, published in the journal Foods, confirmed that instant coffee is the most heavily processed and highly vulnerable format for hidden fillers like chicory and cereal starches, because once it's a processed powder, you can't see the fraud. For anyone with a severe gluten or grain allergy, this lack of traceability is a total minefield. It feels and smells flat because it's stale before it even hits the lorry. Verdict? Buying this is essentially paying a multinational corporation to help them clear out their warehouse floor sweepings. Now, if you already feel like checking your own kitchen cupboard right now, hit that subscribe button, because the big players are up next and the deception gets significantly harsher from here. Let's talk about Kenco, owned by the global giant JDE Peet's, a corporation turning over billions annually. Kenco positions itself as a premium, eco-conscious British classic with its Common Grounds sustainability program. But look past the clever marketing and what do you actually get? Their mass-market pre-ground tins and instant granules are completely opaque when it comes to single-origin transparency or independent laboratory results for glyphosate and heavy metals. Worse, Kenco is incredibly famous for its massive line of flavored coffees and instant sachets. Let's be completely honest. The flavored coffee industry is a chemical bath. To get that hazelnut or vanilla finish, they take the lowest grade, most defective beans that would taste absolutely foul on their own and drench them in synthetic flavorings and a carrier solvent called propylene glycol. Yes, the food-grade stuff, but it's structurally related to industrial antifreeze. You are literally paying premium prices for lab-made chemicals sprayed over bottom-of-the-barrel commodity beans to make them taste like a dessert. One angry reviewer on Sainsbury's website noted that the vanilla blend smelled like a synthetic air freshener and gave them an instant headache. Verdict? Kenco is selling you a chemical illusion wrapped in a green blanket. Next up is the heavyweight of the British high street, Starbucks grocery coffee, distributed in our supermarkets by Nestlé. People buy these bags in Waitrose or Morrison's because they trust the famous Green Mermaid logo and the brand's loud claims of 100% ethical sourcing. However, a massive class action lawsuit filed in 2025 blew a hole right through that cozy image, alleging that farms under Starbucks' ethical sourcing umbrella were caught using dangerous working conditions. Starbucks disputed the claims, but the legal headache didn't stop there. Independent laboratory testing cited in the litigation revealed that certain batches of their decaf medium roast contained volatile organic compounds, including trace residues of methylene chloride, benzene, and toluene. Methylene chloride is a harsh solvent used to strip caffeine from the beans. It's the exact same chemical that was finalized for a consumer ban by environmental agencies because of its status as a likely carcinogen. It's banned from hardware store paint strippers, yet it's completely legal to use on your morning coffee because the regulations allow trace amounts. Verdict? Starbucks is charging you a high street premium for a product that is facing serious questions over chemical purity and supply chain ethics. Finally, we reach the undisputed king of the British kettle. Nescafé, another jewel in the Nestlé crown. This is the ultimate household staple, the red mug, the best part of waking up vibe that millions of Brits consume every single day. But Nescafé instant coffee represents the absolute pinnacle of the industrial staleness and chemical trap. According to data published in the Exhale Instant Coffee Analysis and the Consumer Council reports, instant coffee has been shown to contain up to twice the amount of acrylamide compared to fresh roasted ground coffee. Acrylamide is a genotoxic carcinogen that forms naturally during high heat roasting when sugars and amino acids fuse together. Because instant coffee is heavily processed, boiled down, and freeze-dried or spray-dried at extreme scale, the chemical profile is heavily altered. Furthermore, conventional mass-market brands like Nescafé rely on coffee crops that are among the most heavily sprayed with synthetic pesticides and glyphosate on Earth. They do not publish third-party clean lab certificates for their batches. Dr. Jack Wolfson, a leading cardiovascular specialist, has openly warned that the cumulative daily intake of pesticide residues and mycotoxins over 40 or 50 years is a genuine concern for long-term health. You think you're drinking a British tradition, but you are actually drinking a highly processed, chemically exposed commodity powder from an opaque global supply chain. Verdict? The nation's favorite red mug is nothing more than a chemical factory disguised as comfort. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We've dragged the worst marketing offenders into the light. So it's only fair that you get your reward. You don't have to pack in your morning brew or give up your daily caffeine hit entirely. You just need to alter where you look on the shelves and stop settling for mass-market chemical junk. The UK actually has a stellar, highly regulated market of independent, hyper-transparent roasters and health-focused specialists who are fundamentally changing how coffee is sourced and produced. These brands treat coffee like a fresh agricultural superfood rather than an anonymous brown commodity powder, and they back up their claims with cold, hard laboratory evidence. Let's start with an absolute game changer that you can grab right here in the UK, Exhale Healthy Coffee. Founded in London, this brand approaches coffee with a pure wellness mindset, holding a strict B Corp certification. They don't just claim their coffee is clean. They subject every single shipment to a rigorous 9-point independent laboratory testing process. Their beans are tested for pesticides, moulds, yeasts, heavy metals, and mycotoxins before they are allowed near a roaster. On top of that, they are fully Soil Association organic certified, meaning zero synthetic chemical residues or glyphosate drift. In practice, when you brew a cup of their single-origin Ethiopian house roast, you are hit with incredibly bright notes of milk chocolate and dark stone fruit, entirely free of that bitter chemical astringency you get from cheap instant stuff. Price-wise, it sits around 16 to 20 quid, depending on whether you grab a subscription or a one-off bag, which works out to roughly 50 pence a cup. Yes, it's a jump from a £2 bag of supermarket own-brand floor sweepings, but you are paying directly for independent chemical validation and a total lack of mold toxins. Expert tests show their unique roast profiling locks in more natural antioxidants and polyphenols than standard high-street blends, making it an absolute no-brainer for anyone who prioritizes clean internal health. BalanceJournal.co is show 1. Next up is another fantastic homegrown British winner, Lean Caffeine. This family-run UK brand specifically targets the clean energy and functional nutrition crowd. They source high-altitude, single-origin beans from Nicaragua that are entirely hand-sorted and fully washed to remove any potential mold growth right at the source. Lean Caffeine sends their finished roasts to independent, accredited labs to screen for over 600 different pesticides, heavy metals like cadmium and lead, and dangerous ochratoxins. If a batch doesn't come back completely clear, it doesn't get packaged. Sensorial-wise, this is a spectacular, low-acid roast. If supermarket coffee regularly leaves you with a burning sensation in your stomach or a jittery, anxious crash an hour later, this is your solution. It's smooth, dark, incredibly rich, and specifically designed to cut through grass-fed butter or MCT oil if you're into the keto lifestyle. A standard bag starts at around 15 quid, which is incredibly competitive for lab-verified, mycotoxin-free beans. The only minor downside is that because they focus so heavily on purity and low acidity, the flavor profile is exceptionally bold and dark. So if you are someone who prefers a fruity, hyper-light Scandinavian-style roast, it might feel a bit intense at first, but for absolute purity and stomach comfort, it's a triumph. www.ombuy.com is show 2. If you want absolute traceability combined with a high street artisan experience, look no further than Union hand-roasted coffee, which you can easily find in premium supermarkets like Waitrose, Ocado, or direct online. Union doesn't just buy commodity streams. They pioneered the Union Direct Trade model, paying up to 50% above the global fair trade minimum directly to smallholder cooperatives. Every single bag comes with 100% farm-level traceability. They roast in small batches in East London, meaning the bag you buy is actually fresh, not oxidized trash that has been rotting in a regional distribution centre for 6 months. When you open a bag of their Bobolink Brazilian roast, the aroma fills the room with rich, nutty caramel notes that instantly show up the stale emptiness of commodity coffee. It costs around £6 to £8 for a standard bag, breaking down to an astonishing 25 pence per serving. They don't explicitly publish multi-toxin lab sheets for every single batch like Exhale, which is their slight drawback. But their strict artisanal hand sorting and direct from farm moisture controls virtually eliminate the high-risk conditions where mold and toxins thrive. Coolcuration.com finally, for the absolute gold standard of everyday coffee drinking, buying whole bean, certified organic single origin coffee from any transparent local independent UK roaster, like Origin Coffee Roasters or Volcano Coffee Works, and grinding it fresh at home. This path fits literally any budget, because you are eliminating the middleman's marketing markup. You can buy a bag of certified organic single-origin whole beans for about 8 to 10 quid. Because you are buying whole beans, you are completely bypassing the filler fraud industry. A machine cannot fake a physical coffee bean. You buy a cheap £15 burr grinder off the internet. Grind only what you need for that specific morning cup, and you instantly unlock maximum antioxidant density and a flavor that blows any high street cafe out of the water. It is the definitive way to reclaim control over your morning ritual, ensuring that you aren't pouring chemical solvents or industrial leftovers into your system. Right, now that we've torn through the corporate nonsense and looked at the clean alternatives, let's arm you with something practical. You need a checklist you can pull out next time you're pushing a trolley through Waitrose, Sainsbury's, or M&S, so you can immediately spot the difference between genuine, high-grade purity and cleverly marketed commodity rubbish. Screenshot this or commit it to memory, because these are the 5 golden rules of the British coffee aisle. First, look at the bottom or back of the packet for the specific organic certification code, such as GB Orgzor 5 or similar Soil Association and DEFRA control body markers. If it doesn't have an officially registered UK organic code, it has almost certainly been subjected to intensive synthetic pesticide spraying and glyphosate weed management on a mass industrial plantation. Second, check the packaging specifically for the words Swiss water process or mountain water process when buying decaf. If a tin or bag of decaf simply says decaffeinated without naming the water method, it means the massive food conglomerates have used chemical solvents like methylene chloride, the paint stripper chemical. To strip the caffeine out on the cheap, third, make whole bean your absolute baseline and completely ditch the pre-ground bags. A factory can easily grind up cheap Robusta defects, twigs, and starches into a uniform brown powder, but they cannot forge the physical, visual structure of a whole premium Arabica coffee bean. Fourth, treat the phrase single origin as a mandatory requirement, and check if the label lists the exact region, cooperative, or washing station. If the bag just says blended from more than one country or features vague marketing phrases like rich Italian blend or smooth morning roast, you are buying an anonymous commodity dump of whatever leftover beans were cheapest on the global tradie. NG floor that week. Fifth, avoid any coffee packet that has an ingredients list containing flavorings, natural identical extracts, or propylene glycol. True high-quality specialty coffee gets its notes of chocolate, fruit, or nuts naturally from the soil and the roasting process itself, whereas added chemical flavorings are almost exclusively used as a cosmetic mask to hide foul tasting. Mold-damaged beans. To sum this whole mess up, the global coffee industry is built on a massive, highly profitable illusion of freshness and tradition. The corporate giants want you to believe that every jar of instant or bag of pre-ground coffee is a romantic, hand-picked masterpiece, when the reality is an opaque, multi-billion-pound commodity stream designed to stretch profit margins by using mass chemical processing, high pesticide loads, and zero consumer transparency. But you don't have to be a passive victim of their clever marketing jingles or bright red plastic packaging anymore. By making one simple shift in your thinking, treating coffee as a fresh, traceable, seasonal agricultural superfood rather than an industrial pantry powder, you completely strip away the power of these corporate deceptions. Cheers for sticking with me through this investigation, mate. If this breakdown has opened your eyes or made you think twice about what you're putting into your body every morning, please share this video with a mate or a family member who literally cannot function without their daily brew. Let's protect our loved ones from drinking chemical factory sweepings. Drop a comment below and tell me honestly, which of these mass-market brands is sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now? And are you chucking it in the bin after this? If you want to dive even deeper into what the food industry is hiding from British consumers, click on the video on your screen right now, where we expose the dark truth behind the UK's most popular supermarket olive oils. Investigate what you consume, look after your health, and stop letting the big corporations treat your morning mug like a dumping ground.